Episode 7 Memory. Audrey had always known trials were a blessing, for only the righteous are tested by the Lord. She also knew that the wicked flee when no one pursues them. Righteous, however, steadfastly accept all blessings and sorrows that life brings. Father would say that my problems are snowballing because I ran away from my trial like a coward and God turned his back on me. But it's too late to turn back now that my troubles have taken on flesh, blood, and even a name. The Beast. Phil monotonously told Mikhail with little information they had been able to find out. Our suspect's name is Philip Moore, no criminal record, but not even a parking ticket. From time to time, Mikhail interrupted her monologue with clarifying questions. Whenever he did, Audrey would meet Phil's awkward, concerned gaze. She's wondering if I'm going to tell him myself. The police couldn't interrogate him? No. He's too agitated to be formally questioned or charged. He won't be able to stand trial tomorrow in this condition, so he's been transferred to the hospital for now. Which one? The psychiatric one, Goodlum, into a closed ward with increased observation. A familiar name was a trigger, causing an immediate panic attack. Audrey, you worked there, didn't you? His gaze shifted to the evaluator. Please don't ask me to go there and find out what's wrong with him. I don't think it changes anything. He's been injected with enough sedatives to knock out a horse. All he's doing now is drooling and smiling sweetly at the clinic staff. What are we even talking about here? Cassio's irritated voice cut through the air, drawing everyone's attention. This is the first time we've caught a killer who leaves his mark, and we're just chatting about him in the living room? Where would you like to discuss him then? You know what I mean. Moore could be trying to strangle himself with his own tongue right now, and then we'd end up with nothing. Again. Cassio's word made sense, and everyone knew it. Their cautious silence spoke volumes. Before Moore, everyone they managed to catch committed before they even got to the police station. Get ready, Audrey. You're coming with me to Goodlum. What? No one will let you see him. Audrey pulled herself together and gave her voice an icy, rigid tone. Even if I still work there, like I said, Moore's been sedated and can't string a sentence together. At the very least, we have to wait until he comes to his senses. Cassio's expression made it clear that her words were turning the gears in his head. All in all, I don't think this is a good idea. Sitting and waiting doesn't sound any better. It seemed like Audrey was digging herself into a deeper hole with every word she spoke. Fortunately, Phil came to the rescue. By pulling her out of one of the holes, the officer immediately pushed her into another. Audrey won't go to him. Why? Because Philip Moore recognized her, and apparently it was Audrey that triggered his episode, or whatever happened to him. Without showing any surprise, Mikhail asked coldly, Was he your patient? No. He tried to introduce himself to me at a club. That's hardly a coincidence. Audrey tried to read the emotions on his face, but his expression remained inscrutable. It doesn't seem like a coincidence. At the very least, Philip Moore and the unfortunate patient have something in common. They both await the coming of a beast. And whoever this beast is, whether a person or a metaphor for evil, it means a lot to them. What did Moore say to you? He spoke about the beast. Do you know anything about it? I'm afraid not. He remained silent. It was as if he was giving her time to gather the courage to confess what she couldn't bring herself to say. If I say that the patient threatened me, he'll definitely figure out that I was dishonorably dismissed from Goodlum. I need to accept Malik's offer. He will help me and clear my name, and then I can tell them everything. You mentioned that the mark these people leave is a symbol of evil, a symbol of the beast. They can call it whatever they like. The main question is what significance you hold for them. And how on earth does Philip Moore know you? What difference does it make? How he knows her. What we should conclude from all of this is Audrey should stop hanging out with suspicious people. Suspicious people like you guys? At least until we figure out what Audrey's connection to them is. So no adventures for now, little witch. There's a dubious adventurer here every day. How am I supposed to work, then? You can work with me. But not alone. They want to lock me up at home. I don't think that's necessary. Who knows how Philip Moore knows me? And he'll be behind bars tomorrow, so why all the caution? Audrey. His soft, soothing voice stopped her mid-sentence. No one is going to keep you confined in the house or watch your every step. But you can't blame us for being overly cautious. We're just as concerned as you are. Yeah, I can tell by your constantly impassive faces how deeply concerned you all are. The killer is clearly interested in you, and he's definitely connected to the group that is leaving those marks on the bodies. Isn't that reason enough to be concerned? Fair enough. Interpreting her response as agreement, Mikhail finally allowed himself to smile. Excellent. I hope that's settled. Raphael, go with Fel and find out where Moore lived, who he interacted with, and where he spent his free time. David, can you get into his ward quietly and find what beast he's waiting for? Piece of cake. I'll be waiting for everyone in the morning, then. Some night assignments these are. Maybe we should discuss the work schedule? Cassiel, you stay home. They're making him my babysitter? Once they received their assignments, the team didn't linger. Vel rushed past her without a word. Mikhail approached Raphael and they left the living room together at a leisurely pace. I wonder where our boss is going. Left alone with Cassiel, Audrey shifted awkwardly from foot to foot. I think I'm going to bed. Cassiel reacted immediately. Let's go. Is he gonna walk me to my room? Leaving her no choice, Cassiel silently pointed at the door. He waited for her to go out and then followed her. At the door of the bedroom, Cassiel stopped suddenly and stared at her expectantly. Is he waiting for me to say goodnight? What did he say to you? Who? Moore. Audrey hadn't planned on opening up, especially to Cassiel, but the mystery of the moment, the intimacy of being alone in the house, loosened her tongue. He said the devils were boiling my mother in a cauldron. Words came out harsh, defiant, a typical defensive reaction, but they elicited neither surprise nor smile from Cassiel. Strange way of getting your attention. Do you think he was trying to get under my skin? If your mother is alive, that's a pretty stupid way to do it. And if she isn't? The next dry statement from Cassiel made her heart skip a beat. Then he knows a lot more about you than just your name. Suddenly there was an explanation for the strange call. Did Moore set this up? But how and why? Audrey. You look pale. Is everything all right? It's not, but should I tell you that? Tell him the truth. I guess Moore really does know a lot more about me than I thought. And I think he called me. He called you. What did he want? To torment me? Cassiel chose not to comment on that, but said something far more important. We'll figure this out. And you're doing the right thing by not hiding information from us. If you need me, just call me. I hope I can do without a babysitter tonight. As soon as Audrey opened the door, a strange noise came from the bedroom, preventing them from saying goodbye. Without a word, Cassio placed his hand on her delicate shoulder. He moved her aside and walked into the bedroom. It took a while to find the source of the noise. Audrey peered out from behind Cassio's broad back. She could see nothing out of the ordinary in the room. The open window let in a pleasant night breeze and the smell of greenery. Also, a small intruder. Everything's fine. You can go to sleep. Following his gaze, she barely resisted the urge to grab his arm. Aww, bad. Yes. Why is it called Flying Fox, though? In the corner, clinging to the edge of the curtain rod with its tiny claws, hung a flying fox. Just as frightened as the room's owner was, it squeaked sharply, warning them that it was ready to defend itself. What do you mean you can go to sleep? There's a bat in my room. So what? Backing up to the door, just in case, Audrey blocked Cassio's way out. You're supposed to protect me from danger. It's not just any bat. It's a flying fox. It's not dangerous. Ignore it, and it will go away on its own. I want to pet it. It's got a little fuzzy belly. Sharp squeak gave Audrey a sudden burst of insistence. Please, it scares me. Not really believing that this cute creature could truly scare anyone, Cassio stared at his colleague. I'm going to sleep in the living room if you don't help me. With a resigned sigh, he looked around, trying to figure out the best way to catch the creature. If you're really scared, you can wait in the hallway. How will you catch it? I will wait for it to calm down and help it find the window. Alright, I hope he knows what he's doing. Help Cassio. Wait in the hallway. I'll help. What should I do? He raised an eyebrow in surprise and reminded her. But you're afraid. I'm afraid for you too. Clearly not knowing how to react, he went still. The irritation that had been building all day suddenly melted away, broken by a single sentence spoken out of emotion. It was ridiculous because of the situation, but also too sincere to laugh at. Fine. Open the window wider and try to ignore it. Glancing warily at the corner of the room, Audrey almost ran to the window. She threw it open so wide that the frame creaked in protest. Just don't fly out until I'm out of here. As he watched the nervous way his colleague moved, Cassio momentarily forgot the main reason he was in the room. Audrey ran towards him, and the thought that she was looking for his protection warmed his heart in a strange way. It will calm down soon, and if it doesn't fly out on its own, I'll move it. Knowing that this would take some time, Cassio sat down on the edge of the bed. Audrey was so agitated by what was happening that she barely even noticed. Are you going to catch it with your bare hands? It's not dangerous, but it might bite out of fear. Let me find some gloves. She glanced quickly at her hands, which were not particularly delicate, and added, or a towel. It will definitely get scared and try to bite. Now both Cassio and the flying fox were watching her. Audrey grabbed a clean terry cloth towel from the bathroom and then rushed back. Look at you do, guy. Here, take it, but be careful. Cassio nodded and glanced at the flying fox, as if it was reading his thoughts and did not want to get caught. It decided to make its way out on its own. As it left, it swooped down and on them as if to thank them for their hospitality. When they saw the frightening creature approaching, Audrey shrieked and squirmed. The moment she shut her eyes, her imagination whispered that the fox was already tangled in her hair. Flailing her arms, Audrey tried to leave the room, but forgot about the bed that was in their way. She tripped and fell onto the sheets, but didn't stop swinging. All she could see was the snarling face and the winged beast. Fighting off an imaginary foe, Audrey suddenly realized that she was not on the floor, but on the bed. She was kneeling on the bedspread, with Cassio lying half beneath her, dumbfounded by her behavior. Is it on me? Is it on me? Get it off, please. Unsure of where to put his hands, he rested them on the bed. He tried his best to ignore the fact that Audrey was literally sitting on him. Audrey. His voice didn't reach her ears, so he had to use his hands. Gently, he grasped her slender waist. He was about to lift her off of him, but then for some reason he didn't. It's gone. You're safe. She opened her eyes wide and looked around in fear. No one had tried to bite her. Her hair was slightly disheveled, but the flying fox had nothing to do with it. Audrey lowered her eyes and sighed in relief and then placed her hands on his chest. God, you have no idea how scared I am of bats. So was Bruce Wayne. Cassio propped himself up and forced a wry smile. Yeah, I got that. The feeling of his heart beating faster under her palms brought her back to reality. When she realized the position they were in, she blushed deeply. Sorry. Standing up gracefully didn't work. She slowly slid off of him, accidentally touching parts of his body that she definitely shouldn't be touching. Cassio, who could have lifted her in one easy motion, stilled. He let go of her waist, only when her feet touched the floor. How embarrassing. To her horror, she realized that she was getting flushed not only because of the situation, but also because of the heat spreading through her. Her body burned, reminding her of Cassio's tense muscles and deep breathing. And how fast his heart is beating. It's all right, Audrey. His slightly husky voice made them both feel uneasy. In his haste to get off the bed, Cassio nearly knocked a vase of flowers off the table. I'll, go. Close the window. Yeah. If another fox flies in, I won't come to your aid. Yes, of course. Audrey was dying of embarrassment. She would agree to anything just to get the source of this feeling out of the room as quickly as possible. Cassio, surprising her with an unusual awkwardness, seemed to be of the same mind. Without another word, he slipped out the door, closing it quietly behind him. Oh, what was that? Once alone, Audrey suddenly realized how tired she was. Cassio will be plagued by the same question all night. She barely had enough energy to change her clothes and crawl under the blanket. Life's gotten too interesting. I missed the little bat already. The next day. Surprisingly, the night passed without any nightmares. It looks like the bat took all the worries of the past day with it. After taking a shower, Audrey put on the first outfit she could find. Alright, so we've got ordinary day, early riser, daily grind, busy morning, unforgettable evening, get everything. Literally one outfit is literally half the cost of everything. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of dig this outfit. It was either that or early riser. The other ones are okay, but for once, I'm gonna choose something that's other than black. I know, shocking. Should I choose something else? Continue. Now for my hair. I see nothing wrong with the current hairstyle you had, but side ponytail, formal dark, formal light, bangs dark, bangs light, curls red, curls dark, get everything. I hate the side ponytail, but I'm changing back. Continue. Excellent. Now breakfast. Audrey hoped to find some of her colleagues in the kitchen, but the spotless surfaces indicated that she was the first one up. Everyone must be sleeping in after Mikhail's night tasks. Fighting the urge to just have a cup of coffee for breakfast, she opened the refrigerator. Alright, what can I make with this? We have a croissant. Looks like eggs, tomato, lettuce, porridge with berries, and pancakes. Get everything. Bro, and it's free? Get everything. I'll make breakfast for everybody. I'm sure someone hungry will burst in soon. Ah, okay. We're making it for everybody. Audrey couldn't remember the last time she enjoyed cooking this much. I'm always in a rush. Work, uni. It's so much easier to buy something on the go. Turns out it's not that hard to stop and treat yourself to something delicious. The smell of breakfast attracted the sleepy residents of the mansion. Or rather, one resident and one guest. David entered the kitchen, followed behind like a dark cloud. Good morning. Very good morning, little witch. David ran a quick glance over at her and smiled dreamily. It's clear you love your job. You look fantastic. Sit down for breakfast. I made a few portions. Isn't she the best, Phil? The unexpected care made Phil smile. Definitely better than all of you. Combined. Want me to make you some coffee? Suspecting that they'd had a sleepless night, Audrey tried to brighten their morning in some way. Let me handle the coffee. Sit with Phil. He wants to talk to you. David gently nudged her towards the table, then began fiddling with the coffee maker. Is there really something you want to discuss, or did just David make me step away from the stove under false pretenses? There is. Did you manage to find anything out interesting about Philip Moore? Oh, I found out quite a bit. Maybe even a bit too much. Audrey sat down next to Phil and propped her head up on her hand. We discovered that Moore was indeed a frequent visitor to Goodlam. That explains a lot. Yes, but not as a patient. He was visiting another patient. I see. Did you get the name? Not only did we get the name, but we also know where he is. In an isolation ward. About a month ago, a man named Oscar confessed to a murder. Another ritualistic one? And this is where we need your help. He's in isolation, not in prison, because he doesn't remember who he killed or how. It sounded really strange, but not so strange that there wasn't an explanation for it. Memory loss is quite common. There are dozens of reasons it can happen. And even more often, people will lie about having it because they naively assume that amnesia will lessen their punishment. A Goodlam patient, you say. What was he there for? He has auditory hallucinations. Interesting. Maybe it's just another one of his delusions? He would have been put back into a ward long ago if it wasn't for one thing. His neighbor went missing around the same time. It sounds so bad that it made the hairs on the back of Audrey's neck stand up. Are you sure he really doesn't remember? He was tested for everything from brain diseases to simple deception. They ruled out everything except dissociative amnesia. So, total memory loss. When he first came to the police station, he tried to explain something. But after all the testimony he read, his mind got all mixed up. Now the guy doesn't even know where his fragmented memories end and the other people's thoughts begin. I see. And how can I help? Do you know how to perform hypnosis? The unexpected request took her by surprise. Do I know how to perform hypnosis? Yes, but it's not recommended for Oscar. It's not a good idea to hypnotize someone in this state, especially if his amnesia is dissociative. He could develop false memories, and if it brings up trauma, he might need time to process it. I understand your moral principles. I'm asking you to take the risk. You are the last hope, not only for us, but for Oscar, who suffers every day not knowing what he's done. David placed cups of aromatic coffee in front of the women and winked cheerfully at Phil. So, will you arrange a meeting with the suspect for us? This time, everyone at the station looked at Phil's companions with open displeasure. Noticing the sideways glances thrown at Astrea employees, Phil shrugged apologetically. They know who you are and why you're here. I didn't keep it a secret. Smiling nonchalantly at the grumpy policeman, David explained. Enforcers of the law think that people like me protect scoundrels. And that people like you, Audrey, help them to trade jail cells for cozy hospital beds with pretty nurses. Yeah, no, a lot of those nurses are not very pretty. Audrey couldn't find the words to defend herself. Well, that's just our job. The irritated looks didn't bother her much. She was much more worried about the conversation ahead. I hope you understand that the information obtained hypnosis isn't even 30% reliable. And you certainly can't use it in a court. I don't really care what Oscar tells you. The main thing is to find out where he hit the body. The last word quickly caught her attention and pushed all doubts aside. What if the woman is still alive and waiting for help? Trying not to think about the fact that a month had passed since her disappearance, Audrey followed Phil. Once inside the interrogation room, Audrey involuntarily glanced at the large mirror that hid the other room from view. I didn't think I'd be back here so soon. The blood had been wiped off the mirror, of course, but Audrey had no trouble visualizing it in a minute detail. They hadn't repaired the handcuff mount yet. Instead of a metal ring, a gaping hole in the table served as a reminder of Philip Moore's immense strength. Why doesn't anybody talk about his strength? There's a logical explanation for this. There's a scientific explanation for this. This is something supernatural. So there is both a scientific, logical, and possibly a supernatural thing for this. So it's really hard for me. I'm gonna go with logical. Maybe the mount was loose. There are always careless workers in any institution. And I don't think Moore is the first to break free and attack a police officer. Phil noticed where Audrey was looking and quickly reassured her. He'll be wearing handcuffs. Frankly, I'm more afraid for him than I am for myself. He gave his consent, Audrey. He wants to know what he did. How he reacts to the truth is not our problem. Half of what he sees could be a distorted truth. What matters is extracting the part of his memory with the address where he's hiding the girl. There's no point in arguing any further. I'm already here. There's no turning back. If you want to conduct a hypnosis session, he doesn't need handcuffs. He should be relaxed and immersed. And only the two of us should be in the room. I don't think I'm jealous here, but I can't allow that. David's right. We won't leave you alone with him. Audrey wasn't eager to do this at all, but she spoke directly. It won't work otherwise. One of you can stand outside the door. I'm sure you'll react quicker than he will. Pursing her lips together, Phil turned to David. Shall we step out? What's that supposed to mean? Don't be mad, little witch. We're just worried about you. What else do you need for hypnosis? A watch on a chain? Rolling her eyes, Audrey barely stopped herself from snapping back. Bring a proper armchair and a lamp. We need to dim the lights. And I asked the medics to prepare a quick sedation kit, just in case. Should we send someone from the clinic staff here? No, that's not necessary. If we need to use a needle, I can handle it myself. Just help me restrain him if necessary. Her colleagues nodded and then left. Audrey rubbed her sweaty palms and tried to remember everything she had learned at the university. One of the first things they taught us was how to quickly insert winged infusion needles. At the time, I didn't think about why. Audrey pushed the metal chair against the wall to make room for the armchair. She placed her chair close to the exit, just in case. A few minutes later, David returned with everything she'd asked for. He helped prepare the room and dim the lights. Don't worry, Audrey. No one can handle this better than you. How do you know? I see the way you work and the way you talk to people. You always know what to say. If you had joined Astrea earlier, I wouldn't have had to defend the honor of our organization in court all the time. Just don't be rude to people. Sometimes that's enough. Then we have to stop working with Felon Cassiel. At least Felonia has a job, but I have no idea where our night would go. Trying to dispel her growing anxiety, David gave her a sly smile. I have something for you. He was holding a familiar device, a plastic square with a red circle in the middle. A panic button? Just in case. It summons the best lawyer in the world. How convenient. Can I take it with me out of the station? Unfortunately, this particular button belongs to the police, and they probably won't be happy if we steal it. What a shame. It's a handy button. Well, you know, the ability to summon me 24/7 is a great luxury. But it's theoretically possible? You have every chance, dear little witch. David placed the button in her hand and then warned her, hide it, or Oscar might take it from you. The reminder that she could be attacked during the session brought back some unpleasant memories. Audrey involuntarily touched her neck, winced, and crossed her arms over her chest. She tightened her grip on the button. I'm at a police station. David will be on the outside of the door. What could happen? Even if he manages to attack me, they'll pull him away immediately. The thought of feeling hands around her neck again, eager to strangle her, was terrifying. Panic began to set in. What am I even thinking? Hypnosis, being alone with him. Oscar is already a murder suspect, and I want to talk to him without handcuffs. Noticing her state, David caught her eye. What's wrong? Did the button scare you? It's just a precaution. Her smile came out forced and crooked. Giving up on trying to look strong and brave, Audrey confessed. Sorry, I feel uneasy all of a sudden. I know, I seem overconfident sometimes, but you really are safe around me. And no door will be a barrier for me to get to you. David's voice became velvety and soothing. I'll get to you before Oscar can even move a finger. I'm afraid I won't be able to press the button that quickly. Frowning, David waved the thought away. It's a formality. I brought it because I hoped it would calm you down, not the other way around. I'm not usually this nervous. Alright, that's it. Give me the button. We'll conduct the session together. David's confidence was infectious. As she looked into his unusually serious eyes, Audrey really began to believe that he wouldn't let anything bad happen. It's okay. I've calmed down, really. He held out his hand and looked at the evaluator expectantly. I'll sit quietly in the corner, I promise. I'm not giving it to you. She smiled at the frowning man and put her hands behind her back. Don't make me chase you around the room. It's unprofessional. A second ago, she was about to cry, but now she wanted to laugh. I'm a bundle of nerves. But somehow David's always managed to soothe all of her fears. That's why she didn't want to give up so quickly. Maybe. Suggest you try and take the button away, or put the button away. Why are you being such a baby, Audrey? Reaching out, David tried to grab the button, but Audrey dodged him. It's not that easy to swipe something from me. It's easier than you think. I'm just not trying because I'm counting on your common sense. She wanted to reply that her common sense had left her when she crossed the threshold of Astrea, but that would be too much. Oh really, try me? Audrey clutched the button more tightly and backed away towards the table. David played along willingly, advancing menacingly. You won't even have time to squeal. Audrey knew that David wasn't really trying to take anything from her. He was just trying to distract her by playing along, and it worked. She wanted to tease him forever, instead of returning to her frightening work. See, it's not that easy. Audrey pressed herself against the metal obstacle and smiled innocently. What about now? There's nowhere to run. He stepped closer, making her press further into the edge of the table. His hands rested on the cold surface of either side of her, cutting off her escape route. An innocent joke had led them where they shouldn't have gone. Caught in the ring of his arms, Audrey suddenly didn't want to play this game. With a clatter, the button fell somewhere behind her. If you lose the button, just yell and I'll hear you. Audrey moved away from David and sat on the edge of the table. There was nowhere else to run. Overwhelmed with the gratitude and tenderness, Audrey didn't even notice that she had slipped her hands under his jacket and placed them on his waist. She wanted to nestle against him, to seek refuge from the world in his strong arms. She felt his muscles tense under the thin fabric of his shirt, his skin growing hotter. What are you doing, sweet little witch? His voice had become slightly husky, blending tenderness with rapidly growing desire. A desire that Audrey shared. She tightened her grip and pulled him closer. With a quiet chuckle, he complied. Distracting you from the panic button. His hands moved smoothly from the table to her hips. Goosebumps ran down her body at the gentle caress. Holding her tighter, David pulled her closer and whispered in her ear, "What are we going to do?" Everything swirled before her eyes. Words, thoughts became jumbled in a desire that drowned out all unnecessary thoughts. She enjoyed this feeling so much. All her troubles and worries faded into the background. David pushed all the unwanted thoughts out of her mind so easily, with just one eager touch. The desire he aroused in her made her want to forget everything and give in. She wanted to lose herself. Now? When we crossed the line. Oh God, how she longed to cross it. Biting her lip, she didn't even try to find the right words. She just said what she wanted to say. I think, mentally, I've already crossed it. His hot breath burned her neck. His voice lowered, driving her crazy. Oh, sweet Audrey. Let's not talk about our fantasies right now. Because in my imaginations, I've crossed that damn line countless times already. The meaning of his words didn't immediately sink in. Cross the line? Then a wave of heat spread through her body. Have you fantasized about me? And what did you imagine? If you let me take a step, I won't be able to stop. Do you understand? The quiet whisper enveloped her entire body, sending shivers down her spine. Audrey stepped back and looked into his hazy eyes. She tried to put all of her tangled thoughts into 2 words. I do. His lips, too close for comfort, curled into a smile. Where did you even come from? Too good, even for a witch. The last word melted on her lips along with the warmth of his breath. Struggling with the desire to surrender and make the first move, Audrey parted her lips slightly. She inhaled the scent of mint. I have a feeling you're going to be a handful. And that's very good. Just in case, keep the medication nearby. Audrey flinched, as if waking from some sort of obsessive daydream. The haze of excitement faded instantly, replaced by the fear of being caught. With an understanding chuckle, David immediately backed away. He picked up the lost button and placed it in her hand. He helped her down, stepped aside, turned towards the door. Oh, what if Fell saw us? Audrey glanced at David and noticed he looked unfazed. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and looked at the door in boredom. Without turning to her, he whispered, Come on, little witch, pull yourself together. We haven't done anything to make you so charmingly embarrassed. Oh, I need to calm down and think about work. David definitely won't forget about you, will he? The door swung open and Fell burst into the room. Her gaze lingered on David, then slowly shifted to the evaluator. She frowned, clearly thinking about something, but didn't say anything. Oscar entered the room with Fell. Looks like Fell suspects something is growing between you and David. He stopped at the entrance, looked around anxiously, waiting for instructions. So this is Oscar, huh? Sit in the armchair. Her commanding tone made him shrink. He hunched his shoulders and almost ran to the designated spot. Yeah, it's gonna be real hard for him to relax. As if assessing Oscar's ability to harm anyone, David let out a relieved sigh. Well, let's not bother them. He put his arm around Fell's shoulder and nudged her towards the exit. Before he left, he turned and reminded Audrey, I'm outside the door and Fell is behind the glass. Then, addressing Oscar, he added, Behave yourself. Audrey was sure he would behave himself, even if she were to come at him with her fists. I'm afraid to think about how exactly they tried to get his memory back in the isolation ward. Knowing he wouldn't fall into a trance that easily, she decided to start with a simple conversation. I need to show him that I'm not trying to harm him. Ask simple questions. Don't try to delve into complex topics right away. I'll begin with... asking him to introduce himself, introducing myself. Hello, Oscar. My name's Audrey. I'm here to help you. He nodded and started chewing his lip nervously. We're here for a hypnosis session. Do you know what that is? Shaking his head guiltily, Oscar lowered his eyes to the table. Only very roughly. Sorry. It's okay, Oscar. Don't apologize. Should I explain what it is to him? Yes. It's like meditation. You'll immerse yourself in your memories, and I'll accompany you. I'll make sure you're okay and guide you through the whole process. Oscar looked up and nodded again. Tell me, Oscar, is there a place where you feel completely safe? Not expecting the question, he opened his mouth in surprise, but quickly regained his composure. Yes. The field behind my parents' old house. I always felt good there. Do you go there often? No. When we moved to the city, I stopped going there. Great. I need to ask a detached, simple question. Detached question. This one's a tough one. Do you often experience memory lapses? Where do you live now? What kind of detachment are we going for? Yeah, no, this is hard. This is actually hard. Where do you live now? I ran an apartment near the mall. Lily and I deliberately rented apartments near the mall because we have jobs there. Lily is your neighbor? Yes. We also lived next door to each other when we were kids, and when we left, we became neighbors again. Oscar, sometimes our own minds try to protect us. They hide things that may hurt us. The police want me to help you remember, but I have to ask you if you're ready for the possible consequences. He swallowed loudly and began to speak quickly and nervously. He gasped for breath, as if he wasn't afraid of stumbling and forgetting the words he had spent many nights preparing. Lily is my only friend. When we moved to the city, no one wanted to talk to me. Everyone called me a dumb farmer. Lily never pretended not to know me when other people were around, and if I did something to her, I need to know. Audrey nodded and cleared her throat. All right, let's not waste any more time. Please close your eyes, Oscar, and listen to my voice. Oscar obeyed the request and squirmed in his seat. Take a deep breath. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Once he was relaxed just a little, Audrey continued. Imagine yourself standing on the porch of your parents' house. You have a vast field in front of you and are only a few steps away from it. Slowly, the man's shoulders drooped. I'm going to count from 10 to 1. With each number, you're going to take one step down. 10. 9. You feel a warm, pleasant breeze. You hear the soft rustle of the grass. 8. 7. 6. The steps creak under your feet. 5. 4. 3. You grip the railing with your hand and feel its rough surface. 2. 1. The ground beneath your feet has become soft. You reach out and feel the tall grass tickling your fingers. You're in the field. You're safe. You're in complete control of what's happening. A childishly sweet smile appears on his face. Now, think back to the last time you saw your neighbor Lily. His smile grew a little wider. What do you see? I see Lily. Don't try to make out her features. Try to remember the feelings, the smells, the sounds. What do you feel? Joy? I feel joy. I'm happy. And Lily? She's laughing. We're talking about our boss. Where are you? We're in my apartment. In the kitchen. He frowned. Audrey hurried to find out why. What's happening right now? I hear the doorbell. It's my brother. Looks like we're on the right track. We need to keep going. Were you expecting him to visit? No, he came suddenly. And what's happening now? Lily's not looking at me anymore. She's only looking at Ethan. I want her to stop looking at him, stop listening to him, stop laughing at his jokes. Why? Because if she doesn't stop, something bad will happen. Images woven from shadows slowly filled the room, squeezing her chest with a sense of impending danger. She wanted to cut the session short, so she didn't have to know exactly how the story ended. Are you angry with Lily? Yes. I want to hide her, lock her away, keep everyone from her. Oscar clenched his teeth, gripped the arms of the chair until they creaked. Where are you now? Home. We're all home. I see crows. There are so many. They're trying to peck my eyes out. Oscar, where's Lily? I'm trying to hold her, but she's pulling away. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Pausing, Oscar began to sob. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Are the three of you still together? No, we're alone now. She looks scared. She's not laughing anymore. Twitching, Oscar whimpered softly. I think it's time to end this. No, we need to find out where she is. Continue. Stay with her, Oscar. What do you see? Blood. There's blood on my hands. Lily's gasping. There's so much blood, I'm covered in it. I'm trying to put it back in, but it keeps leaking out. I'm so sorry, Lily. So sorry. Gasping, Oscar jerked in his chair and opened his eyes wide. Breathe. Inhale. Exhale. You're safe. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. No, everything's not fine. Lily's probably dead. Didn't find out where she was, but Audrey fought the urge to remind Fell that words spoken under hypnosis could not be taken as confessions. But Fell, frantically searching for something on the computer, seemed victorious. She was evidently confident in her discovery. If finding a body can be called a victory. Audrey glanced at David and felt herself blush again. Forgetting to be careful, she lifted her eyes and let them linger on his lips. When she met his gaze, she quickly looked away. I'm losing my head at the most inappropriate times. Maybe getting involved with a colleague really isn't the best idea. Her stream of thoughts was interrupted by a bored voice. Looks like everything went well. Yeah, everything went perfectly. You'd be better appreciate your colleague, David. She helped us a lot. We do, Phil. Personally, I think hiring her is the best decision Mikkel's ever made. Looks like he really killed her. Well, I figured that out. Little Oscar got jealous when his older brother came to visit. But they didn't find any evidence in the apartment, did they? Absolutely none. Sensing that something didn't add up, Audrey decided to make a comment. He doesn't seem capable of covering his tracks in cold blood. After killing his friend, he literally erased the event from his memory out of shock. And then he cleaned the floors and walls? But still, we've learned something important. We definitely did. Did we learn that we have a witness? Audrey smiled when she caught a look of pride in David's eyes. Exactly. During the investigation, he never mentioned seeing his brother on the day Lily disappeared. Maybe he helped Oscar clean up. Or maybe he killed her. It didn't make sense that the police had overlooked this, but Audrey refrained from bringing it up. But David didn't hesitate to say what Audrey was thinking. Did your colleagues question him at all? Did they check his statements? Did they just take his word? Phil's irritation was immediate, and she hissed like an angry cat. Why don't you ask the judge for a warrant to search his house? Oscar confessed to murder. Ethan said he hadn't seen his brother in a while, but was terribly worried about him. Is that grounds for search and arrest? Should we put them both in jail at once? David seemed entirely unaffected by Fell's angry speech. Then, dropping a smile, he continues as if nothing had happened. You should have checked that yourself. We found out yesterday that he might be connected to our case. Or should I check all cases myself? They really need to calm down. Speak to Phil, speak to David. Alright, so David, in my opinion, is just bringing up rational, logical thought. Phil is the one getting offended. I'm gonna do Phil. Phil. Audrey calmly bore the weight of the angry glare now directed at her. You do so much, not just here, but at Astrea too, and to claim otherwise is silly. We're all a bit on edge. That's all. Let's calm down and get back to work. Phil sighed heavily and looked sadly at Audrey. So sweet of you, Audrey. Ignoring her colleague's words, Phil forced a smile. Yes, Audrey, you're right. I'm sorry for my outburst. With the argument settled, Phil suggested that everyone return to the agency. And miss the most important part? No way. All we have to do is find out where our accomplice lives and corner him. A possible witness, not an accomplice. Since the brother had already been questioned, it wasn't difficult to find his address. It turned out Ethan still lived in his old family home. That's where they went. That's pretty. After parking the car in front of the house, the trio stopped on the sidewalk to take a look around. The clean streets, expensive houses, manicured lawns created an illusion of order and safety. What a charming place where Oscar grew up. The neighbors' curtains rustled, and the same thing happened in the windows of the next house. Mass curtain rustling. A lady with a dog emerged from around the corner. She cocked her head, surveyed the other people's plots, sniffing and scrutinizing with far more interest than her bored miniature poodle. When the woman's gaze finally rose from a poorly weeded flower bed, she noticed something interesting. 3 strangers standing in the middle of the street. The woman pulled a long face and quickened her pace. Not expecting her to be so agile, the dog scampered after her, tugging at the leash. Good afternoon. She's one of those. Gotta find out what's going on. The shrill shriek of a greeting echoed from about 30 feet away from them. David smiled broadly, waved to the woman, indicating that they were waiting for her to continue. Oh, I love neighbors like this. Now she's gonna tell us everything. Trying not to show her shortness of breath, the woman began to speak before she even reached the strangers. How can I help you? David nodded towards the house. He decided to reveal the purpose of their visits right away. We're looking for the house of the brothers Oscar and Ethan. Is this it? The woman nodded, threw up her hands, and she had a look on her face that said she'd been waiting for this question for an eternity. Oh, I've been saying for ages that the police should take a closer look at the weirdos, but they don't care. The woman gave Phil a skeptical glance and grimaced. No offense, sweetheart, but you're all terrible at your jobs. Phil didn't look offended, but the woman felt compelled to apologize again. I'm sorry to say that nothing changes whether we appeal to you or not. With a meaningful nod, Phil swallowed the words that threatened to burst out of her. My colleagues' social skills are improving by leaps and bounds. The guy always behaves so weirdly. That's why I still don't walk my dog off leash. Do you know how many cats have gone missing in the neighborhood? Dozens. Then he got into that religion and calmed down. The cat stopped disappearing. He tried to convert his brother, but it completely ruined their relationship and they went their separate ways. What religion? Do you know that their neighbor, Lily, is missing? The woman didn't seem surprised. Well, she shouldn't have messed with him. Why did she get involved with the weirdo in the first place? Phil didn't have an answer, but the woman was able to provide one herself. Clearly she got what she wanted. Her own mother couldn't raise her right. The girl paid the price for it. That failed street actress. That she didn't even become famous for her roles, but for splashing acid in her rival's face. What? As if rival was to blame for her lack of talent. So the daughter got involved with that guy. What kind of normal mother would let that happen? But they seem to be friends with Lily. Friends, sure. She fell for his handsome face, just like her mother did back in the day. Like mother, like daughter. Maybe she didn't run away. Maybe she got pregnant and is hiding from her mother in shame. But what is there to be ashamed of? How old was her mother when she gave birth to her again? Well, apparently too young by your standards. The noise brought out the homeowner, a young, handsome man. When the woman saw him, she smiled brightly. Ethan, good afternoon. You have visitors from the police. Surprised, the man looked at his neighbor questioningly, but she hurried away. Well, let's not wait for an invitation. Let's go. With neighbors like these, who needs enemies? With the guests seated at the kitchen table, Ethan began to make coffee. Every now and then Audrey caught him looking over his shoulder at her, but he was just as interested in Fell and David. He placed the cups on the table and slowly shifted his bewildered gaze from one guest to another. It was as if this was his first time seeing other people. Did Oscar tell you that we were at his house that day? Trying to figure out what to say and what not to say, Audrey remained mostly silent, letting Fell do the talking. As usual, she didn't beat around the bush. She immediately declared that Ethan was suspected of giving false testimony. False testimony might be the least of your worries right now. Uh-huh. Ethan leaned thoughtfully against the doorframe leading to the living room and mumbled something unintelligible. Maybe we can get him to talk. Why was Oscar at the hospital? Did you know Oscar was in love with Lily? Why did Oscar move? Do you believe Oscar is capable of murder? Now let's go for the jugular. Lily. Yeah, I know. And you weren't worried about his affection? The bigger question is, why didn't it bother Lily? Maybe I can get him to talk. Oh, maybe we might be able to get all these questions in. Why did Oscar move? He wanted to live on his own, so do what he wanted to do. Do you blame yourself for him leaving? No, why should I? You're here because of him, not me. Why was Oscar in the hospital? He wanted to get rid of the voices in his head. Did he succeed? Well, let's hope he got rid of them after what he did. I believe a lot of things. Why do you need to know that? I think Oscar confessed, didn't he? As she digested the answers, Audrey could draw only one conclusion, and it contradicted the one they made at the police station. He almost saying outright that Oscar did the killing. Would he help him cover his tracks if that was the case? Obviously, the same thoughts crossed the minds of her colleagues. Fell pursed her lips and studied Ethan carefully. The hovering tension filled Audrey's lungs, sending a chill of unease through her body. Does Fell sense something's wrong? Audrey glanced at David and noticed that he, too, seemed unusually composed. A sense of inexplicable dread tightened her throat. Audrey. Pacify your reputation. It's very kind of you to try to help my brother. So kind, it almost brings tears to my eyes. We're all trying to help him. I tried for years, but he resists. Nothing good has come of it. Audrey ignored Ethan's odd words and focused on his strangely unsettling smile. What religion did Oscar turn to? None. He's a die-hard atheist. You couldn't just say the damn word? I had to read it out. What the Ethan pronounced the last word syllable by syllable and smiled again. Interesting. If you have nothing more to say on the matter, we'll be on our way. Suddenly startled, Ethan raised a finger and asked the guest to wait a moment. You know, things work out in mysterious ways. Somehow, our paths crossed. And it's remarkable because I have something for you. Without specifying who exactly he had something for, Ethan disappeared behind the doorway. Audrey go to the car. All three of them got up from the table at the same time. Growing anxiety made their muscles rigid and disobedient. Quickly, time slowed down, becoming thick as molasses. It felt like space itself had congealed. Their feet felt stuck and refused to move. Ethan emerged from the doorway as if rising from the water, disheveled, his eyes crazed. He reached out to her, and his hand was a very clear message. Then the silence was shattered by a deafening gunshot. Another followed. As if awakened, time rushed with incredible speed. Audrey didn't immediately understand why she was having trouble breathing, or where the sunlight had gone. She tried to free herself from the darkness that surrounded her. The darkness receded on its own, revealing itself to be nothing more than David's tight embrace. "Are you okay?" More angry than worried, David took her by the shoulders and quickly examined her. Audrey was confused. She wanted to see what had happened to Ethan, but her eyes fell on David's torn jacket sleeve. "Are you hurt?" Her voice trembled so much David hugged her tightly again, even tighter, knocking the oxygen out of her lungs along with the panic that was building up. "No, little witch, I'm fine." It wasn't easy to stand with her face pressed against his heaving chest. David pulled away from her. His eyes flashed dangerously as he turned to Ethan, who was sprawled on the floor. Fell tucked her weapon into its holster and darted towards Audrey. She placed a cool hand on Audrey's face, forcing her to look into her eyes. "Are you okay?" I don't know." Hearing her trembling voice, Fell pulled Audrey closer and placed her other hand on her face as well. Fell looked into her eyes and spoke in an even, calm voice. "You're okay. Do you hear me? Everything's fine. I won't let anyone hurt you." Audrey covered Fell's hands with hers and nodded. After standing like that for another moment, Fell broke away from Audrey and approached Ethan. "Fell shot her." Audrey watched the bleeding man and felt fear in every cell of her body. "I need to pull myself together." The first thing Fell did was press her foot down on the bullet hole in Ethan's chest. Ignoring his groans, David leaned over the rapidly paling face and barked in a voice that was nothing like his own. "Who put you up to this?" Gasping in pain and laughter, Ethan tried to push Fell's foot off of him, but she pressed harder in response. The beast." "Who is he?" Roaring with laughter, Ethan smeared his bloodied finger across his lips as if sealing them shut. David's eyes flashed and his voice grew deeper and rougher. "Speak!" Audrey flinched at the almost animalistic growl. Ethan suddenly began to talk. "I don't know who he is. Maybe God." Ethan emphasized the last word and began to cough. He ignored the bloody foam seeping from his mouth and continued. "We can't see him. We only hear him. He's in my head." Grinning wildly, he tapped his weakened fist on his temple. Slowly, as if in a dream, Audrey inched closer and squeezed out a question. "Did the voice in your head tell you to kill Lily?" "Yeah. And he also told me to kill you. He tells us all sorts of things, but only some fulfill their purpose. Others don't." "Is he talking about my patient? He didn't fulfill his purpose?" Man's eyes began to fade rapidly, his gaze becoming vacant. Audrey stared at him. She truly couldn't understand who she had wronged so much in this life. A sense of injustice rose in a painful lump in her throat. She wanted to scream, to ask the dying Ethan why they had done this to her. But instead, she suddenly turned to her colleagues. "It's unlikely that Ethan will regain consciousness anytime soon. We need to call an ambulance. Trying to speak as quietly as possible just in case, David remarked. There's no need to rush with that. It won't help him. First, we need to look around. Then I'll call my guys and they'll pick up the body. Audrey tried not to think about the fact that this body had been breathing and wanted to kill her a moment ago. She exhaled through clenched teeth. You can wait for us outside. The smell of gunpowder and blood caused a wave of nausea. Audrey realized that the last thing she wanted to do right now was rummage through Ethan's belongings. She nodded and stepped outside. She sat on the porch and began to count deep breaths, in and out. Gradually, it dawned on her that her neighbor had been talking about Oscar. She had been talking about Ethan. He was the older brother who had embraced religion and tried to involve the younger one. That meant that Lily's feelings were for Ethan. And when Oscar said they were at home with Lily, he didn't mean his own apartment. He meant his parents' house that they had shared with Ethan. There was a sound of a garage door opening nearby. Cautiously peering out from her hiding place, she noticed Fell inside. Audrey brushed off the dust and approached her. Feeling better? Yeah. Where's David? Downstairs in the basement. It's best if you don't go down there. Fighting the urge to see for herself, Audrey asked. Lily? Yes, she's there. The lack of urgency or calls for an ambulance was a grim answer to Audrey's unspoken question. And not just her. Fell looked away, then walked deeper into the garage. Audrey followed her. As Audrey examined the wall, she felt nausea wash over her again. They were surrounded by the eerie, dead eyes of various taxidermied animals. She felt tears well up at the sight of the domestic cats and dogs with their cute collars. Maybe he was collecting roadkill. Fell suppressed her feeble attempt to comfort her colleague. She turned to a shelf covered with a dense black fabric. She pulled it away, kicking up dust. Along with it, wild cawing erupts from the frightened crows, locked in the cages hidden beneath. Their cries assaulted Audrey's ears. The rack shock from the beating of the wings on the bars, but it held. Poor birds. Audrey didn't hesitate as she took Fell by the shoulder. She turned the police officer towards her. Fell, I know we're supposed to wait for the police and let them look around, but can we release them now? Struggling with feelings known only to herself, Fell remained silent. Please? Understanding how much Audrey needed this. Yeah, Astrea. Fell finally nodded. She slowly made her way back to the cages. Careful, so not to startle the already frightened birds, the woman carried the cages out into the yard and opened the doors. Audrey watched each saved life fly away. She mentally returned to the garage where those who hadn't been able to release remained. This is the last one. Fell opened the cage, lifted her head to wash the disappearing black silhouettes. 54 to thank her. Audrey didn't know how to approach her. She quietly walked over to Fell and stood beside her. She wanted to say how important this was to her and how grateful she was, but for some reason all words seemed to lose their meaning. They became too hollow against the vast sorrow that had gathered behind their backs. Audrey couldn't see it, but she felt Fell's hand close to her. If she reached out with her slightly trembling fingers, she could touch it. Why do you want to touch her so badly? Yielding to his desire, Audrey extended her hand. Fell flinched at the touch. She turned in surprise to look at Audrey. Damn. Audrey recoiled guiltily. She tried to find an excuse for what she had done. She took a sharp breath, hoping to explain, but instead of words, only a low, ragged sigh escaped her lungs. We all look for human contact in moments of need. Fell turned away and stared back at the sky. Released into the wild, the birds had disappeared into it quickly. It was like they knew what awaited them if they came back. Or rather, what would have awaited them. Audrey caught herself thinking that she, too, would like to disappear like that. She bit her lip. I should probably back away from Fel so I don't make her uncomfortable. But before she could take a step, Fel suddenly intertwined their fingers. It's pretty. The cool touch of the woman's hand sobered Audrey, brought her back to reality. And though she continued to stare stubbornly at the endless horizon, for a moment it seemed to her that the world had closed in around them. It became smaller, clearer, safer. It was as if there were only two of them left in the world. Tearing her gaze away from the now clear sky, Fel turned to the evaluator. She paused as if expecting Audrey to say something. Thank you. She squeezed her hand a little tighter. They let go of each other, and only then did Fel respond, her voice filled with a touching melancholy. Thank you too, Audrey. You made Fel feel something. By the time David emerged from the basement, the women had put all the cages back in place. When asked if she needed help with anything else, Fel tiredly brushed them off. David cast a worried glance at Audrey and summed up the situation. Our taxidermist went a little further in his mission than the rest of his like-minded comrades. Lily is still quite recognizable, which can't be said for the remains of other victims. David checked the women's reactions, then continued. The mark of the beast, let's call it that, was only burned into her. This is probably the basement where Oscar and Lily were a month ago. If Oscar was not only Lily's death, but also what his brother was doing, it's no wonder he repressed the memory. Called it. I'll call my guys, tell them that Oscar is probably not guilty and that we found the murder. Fel turned away and spoke quickly on the phone. David immediately took advantage of the privacy to speak to Audrey, but she cut him off mid-word. I'm okay, really. Not wanting to embarrass his colleague any further, David calmly turned to Fel, who had just finished her call. So any news? Fel glanced at the evaluator and replied in a colorless voice. Yes. Bad. He's probably dead. Oscar hanged himself in a cell. Another life today was lost because of our professionalism. Fel shared the responsibility with everyone, but Audrey knew for a fact that her inability to stop the session in time was solely responsible for his death. I mean, it wasn't the inability to stop the session, it was just... I was doing my job. When he remembered that Lily was covered in blood, he became convinced that he killed her. You made Oscar believe he was a murderer. David decided that it would be better for Fel to wait for the police without unnecessary witnesses. He called a taxi for Audrey and himself. While waiting for the car, Audrey purposely kept her distance from her colleagues, as if she was afraid they might hear her thoughts. At this point, hiding my past from them is not only stupid, but also dangerous. I need to calm down and finally decide how to handle this. The plan was simple. Ask for Malik's help and tell Mikkel about the patient. But her stomach still twisted with fear. I was so stupidly afraid of humiliation. But there's a much greater danger behind this. I don't know who wants to kill me or why, but it's too obvious to deny that it's happening. Audrey felt a pang in the left side of her chest and clenched her teeth. For a moment, she felt as if the mark of the beast was already on her. As if it was on her chests of the victim, she just hadn't seen it yet. I give you a 5 on that one. That was actually pretty good. 1, I like the art. 2, the story was pretty good. And, yeah, no, So first of all, 1, faith; 2, skepticism; 3, reputation. Would have had 4, but yeah. Hold on, diamonds. All right, so got the diamonds, and in case you were wondering, yes, it looks like episode 8 is currently up. So I will cover that ASAP. So without further ado, if you did enjoy the content, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Head in the description, plenty of links and whatnot to check out, and the whole 9 yards. But aside from that, I'll say the following. So one, the art is really solid. I love the attention to detail, the little animations, the things that move in these chapters and whatnot. Really 10 out of 10 knocking out of the park in terms of visual novels and things that I've played or done in terms of mobile games and especially visual novel apps. 10 out of 10 knocking out of the park. The story is really good. The characters are I mean, you know, I guess it depends, right? Everybody's a little different. Some of the characters are deep, some of the characters are still a mystery, which is a good thing. Isn't too bad. I like that, right? Like, everything's not supposed to just be a huge dump on you and be like, oh, look, this, this person's this. Well, there's no mystery left behind it. So I do enjoy that. Aside from that, let me know your comments or thoughts down in the comment section below. But aside from that, I do really enjoy this app. I really enjoy these stories. I enjoy these far more than, say, for instance, choices right now. So, yeah. Once again, thanks for watching. Catch you all later. Peace out.